The opening chords of Keep Ya Head Up echoed through the Hammerstein Ballroom as 4,000 hip-hop purists packed into the intimate venue erupted in appreciation, completely unaware they were about to witness the most savage destruction of mainstream rap credibility in underground hip-hop history. When the entire Wu-Tang Clan walked onto the stage carrying microphones and a banner reading "Real Hip-Hop versus Fake Consciousness," what followed would split the hip-hop community forever and prove that sometimes the most brutal wars are fought not with weapons, but with competing definitions of authenticity that expose the unbridgeable gap between underground integrity and commercial success. It was March 25, 1996, at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, during what was supposed to be Tupac's intimate acoustic show, a smaller, more personal performance designed to showcase his lyrical depth and social consciousness without the spectacle of his arena tours. The venue choice was significant because it placed Tupac in the heart of New York's underground hip-hop scene, surrounded by the kind of purist fans who valued artistic integrity over commercial appeal. But what made this evening explosive was the growing tension within the hip-hop community about the commercialization of conscious rap and the debate over whether socially aware music could maintain its authenticity once it achieved mainstream success. Wu-Tang Clan had emerged as the most vocal critics of what they saw as the corporate sanitization of hip-hop's revolutionary potential. The philosophical divide had been building for months. Tupac's All Eyes on Me had achieved massive commercial success while maintaining its focus on social issues, but underground purists argued that his death row association and mainstream appeal had compromised the revolutionary edge that conscious rap required. Wu-Tang, with their independent approach and uncompromising artistic vision, had positioned themselves as guardians of hip-hop's authentic revolutionary spirit. RZA, as Wu-Tang's leader and philosophical voice, had been particularly critical of what he called message rap capitalism, the tendency of conscious rappers to package social awareness as entertainment for suburban consumers who wanted to feel enlightened without actually confronting the systemic changes that real consciousness required. What Tupac didn't know was that Wu-Tang had decided to use his acoustic show as a platform for publicly challenging the authenticity of commercial conscious rap and forcing the hip-hop community to choose between underground integrity and mainstream impact. The evening had started as one of Tupac's most intimate and powerful performances. Without the elaborate production of his arena shows, his lyrics took center stage, and the smaller crowd was completely engaged with the social and political content of his music. The atmosphere felt more like a political rally than a traditional concert, with Tupac using the space between songs to discuss police brutality, systemic racism, and community empowerment. But during the middle of Keep Ya Head Up, the 9 members of Wu-Tang Clan appeared in the wings of the stage, each wearing black clothing and carrying microphones, their presence immediately noticeable because their unified appearance suggested they had come as a group with a specific agenda. At first, the crowd assumed this was going to be an unprecedented collaboration between conscious rap's biggest mainstream star and underground hip-hop's most uncompromising collective. The cheering reached deafening levels as fans anticipated what they thought would be a historic meeting of different approaches to socially aware hip-hop. But as Wu-Tang walked onto center stage, their body language and expressions made it clear that this wasn't going to be a celebratory collaboration. Tupac stopped his performance mid-verse, clearly surprised by their coordinated appearance and uncertain of their intentions. "Wu-Tang," Tupac said into his microphone, his voice carrying clearly through the intimate venue. "What's good? Y'all want to drop some knowledge with me tonight?" Instead of accepting the invitation to collaborate, RZA stepped forward with his microphone and addressed both Tupac and the crowd with an intensity that immediately changed the atmosphere of the entire evening. "Nah, Pac," RZA said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had built his reputation on uncompromising artistic integrity. "We came here tonight to talk about something that's been bothering the real hip-hop community for a while now." The crowd's energy shifted as they sensed that something confrontational was about to happen. "We came here to talk about the difference between real consciousness and commercial consciousness," RZA continued, now addressing the packed venue while making it clear he was really talking to Tupac. "We came here to talk about what happens when message rap becomes a product instead of a revolution." Tupac's expression showed that he immediately understood this was going to be a challenge to his artistic credibility and commercial success rather than a supportive collaboration. "What you trying to say, RZA?" Tupac asked, his voice carrying a warning edge that people who knew him had learned to recognize. "What I'm saying," RZA replied, "is that your message rap is too commercial to create real change. What I'm saying is that when you sign to Death Row, when you sell millions of records, when you perform in corporate venues, you're not spreading consciousness, you're spreading entertainment that makes people feel conscious without actually being conscious." The accuracy and sophistication of RZA's critique was immediately obvious, and the crowd could sense that they were witnessing a genuine philosophical disagreement about hip-hop's social function rather than simple artistic rivalry. Method Man stepped forward to join the critique, his voice carrying the kind of street credibility that made his words particularly damaging. "The problem with commercial message rap," Method Man said, "is that it gives suburban kids a way to feel revolutionary without actually challenging the system that oppresses people. When they buy your albums, they think they're supporting black liberation, but really, they're just consuming black pain as entertainment." The crowd was completely engaged now, understanding that they were witnessing a debate that went to the heart of hip-hop's identity and purpose. Tupac's response showed that he wasn't going to accept Wu-Tang's critique without defending his artistic choices and social impact. "Hold up," Tupac said, walking closer to the Wu-Tang collective until he was face to face with RZA at center stage. "Y'all think I'm selling out consciousness. Y'all think my message is fake because it reaches more people than yours. I think your message is diluted because it has to be acceptable to corporate executives and mainstream audiences," RZA replied, his voice firm but not hostile. "I think when you have to make your consciousness profitable, you have to make it safe, and safe consciousness isn't consciousness at all." The philosophical nature of their disagreement was making it clear that this went beyond simple personality conflict into fundamental questions about art, commerce, and social responsibility. "But what's the point of consciousness that nobody hears?" Tupac asked, his voice rising with passion. "What's the point of revolutionary music that only reaches people who are already revolutionaries? If my message helps one suburban kid understand police brutality, if my success creates opportunities for other conscious artists, then commercial success is serving the movement, not hurting it." The crowd was riveted by the sophistication of their debate, understanding that both artists were articulating legitimate but incompatible approaches to hip-hop's social function. Ghostface Killah stepped forward to escalate the critique in a more personal and potentially dangerous direction. "The point of consciousness that nobody hears," Ghostface said, "is that it stays pure, it stays real. It doesn't get watered down for people who want to feel enlightened without changing their behavior. When you make consciousness commercial, you turn revolution into entertainment. And that's exactly what you did," he continued, now pointing directly at Tupac. "You took the anger and the pain and the struggle of the community, and you packaged it for people who will never understand what it really means to live that struggle." The crowd's reaction was complex and divided. They were witnessing legitimate criticisms of commercial conscious rap, but they were also seeing what felt like an unfair attack on an artist who had genuinely helped raise awareness about social issues. But what Old Dirty Bastard said next would transform their philosophical disagreement into a personal attack that made the confrontation much more savage. "You want to know what real consciousness looks like?" ODB shouted, his voice carrying the manic energy that had made him legendary. "Real consciousness doesn't care about being popular. Real consciousness doesn't care about selling records. Real consciousness doesn't care about making white people comfortable with black struggle." The crowd was now witnessing something that went beyond artistic debate into genuine cultural warfare. "Real consciousness," ODB continued, "is too raw, too real, too dangerous for death row records and corporate distributors and mainstream radio. Real consciousness scares people instead of entertaining them." Tupac's response would prove that he wasn't going to let Wu-Tang's attacks on his authenticity go unanswered. even if it meant exposing some uncomfortable truths about underground hip-hop's limitations. "Y'all want to talk about real consciousness?" Tupac asked, his voice now carrying the kind of controlled fury that had made him legendary. "Let me ask you something. How many kids in the ghetto have heard Wu-Tang's consciousness? How many single mothers know about your revolutionary messages? How many people who are actually living the struggle that you rap about have access to your underground purity?" The crowd was stunned by the precision of Tupac's counterattack, understanding that he was questioning whether underground integrity was actually serving the communities that conscious rap claimed to represent. "Because what I see," Tupac continued, "is a group of artists who are more concerned with maintaining their underground credibility than with actually reaching the people who need to hear conscious messages. What I see is revolution as performance art for people who are already enlightened." The power of Tupac's response was undeniable, but it also raised more complex questions about the relationship between artistic purity and social impact. Rza's response showed that Wu-Tang wasn't going to let Tupac's critique of underground limitations go unchallenged. "You write that we don't reach as many people as you do," Rza acknowledged, "but the people we reach get the unfiltered truth. They get consciousness that hasn't been focus grouped and market tested and corporate approved. They get revolution that's designed to create change, not to create comfort. And here's what you don't understand about commercial success," he continued. "It requires compromise. It requires you to make your message acceptable to people who profit from the system you're supposedly fighting against. It requires you to turn your consciousness into a brand." The accuracy of Rza's critique was devastating, because it highlighted the fundamental tension between reaching large audiences and maintaining radical messages. But Tupac's final response would prove that he had thought deeply about these issues and had developed his own philosophy about the relationship between commercial success and social impact. "You think I haven't thought about these contradictions?" Tupac asked, his voice now showing genuine pain along with the anger. "You think I don't know that death row profits from my pain? You think I don't understand that corporate distribution waters down revolutionary messages?" He paused, letting his words sink in before delivering what would become one of the most quoted statements in hip-hop history. "But here's what I figured out," Tupac continued. "If you want to change the system, you have to work within the system. If you want to reach the people who need consciousness most, you have to go where they are, not wait for them to find you in underground venues that they can't afford to attend." The crowd was completely silent now, processing both the wisdom and the contradictions in Tupac's approach to commercial consciousness. "So yeah, I compromise," he admitted, "but I compromise strategically. I give the system enough of what it wants, so that I can slip in the messages that it doesn't want. I make my consciousness profitable, so that I can fund more consciousness." The honesty of Tupac's admission was stunning, and it showed a level of strategic thinking about social change that most conscious rappers avoided discussing publicly. But Method Man's response would prove that Wu-Tang had their own sophisticated understanding of the relationship between purity and impact. "That strategy might work," Method Man acknowledged, "but it also might not work. Because when you make consciousness commercial, you don't just change how many people hear it, you change what they hear. You change the message itself. And maybe," he continued, "the real revolution is refusing to play the game at all. Maybe the real revolution is proving that authentic consciousness can survive and grow without corporate support, even if it takes longer to reach people." The philosophical sophistication of their debate was making it clear that both approaches had merit, and that the tension between purity and impact was one of the fundamental challenges facing any movement for social change. Inspector Deck stepped forward to offer what would become the most nuanced analysis of the entire confrontation. "Maybe," he said, "the real answer is that hip-hop is big enough for both approaches. Maybe we need commercial conscious rappers to reach mainstream audiences, and we need underground conscious rappers to maintain the radical edge. Maybe the movement is stronger when it includes different strategies instead of requiring everyone to choose the same path." The wisdom of his conclusion was obvious, but it also highlighted how much damage had been done to relationships within the conscious rap community during the confrontation. "But what we can't do," Inspector Deck continued, is let commercial success become an excuse for abandoning the revolutionary potential of conscious rap, and we can't let underground purity become an excuse for not reaching the people who need consciousness most. Tupac's final response would show that the confrontation had genuinely changed his understanding of his role within the conscious rap community and his responsibility to maintain the balance between commercial success and revolutionary integrity. "Y'all right about the dangers of commercializing consciousness," he said, "and I'm right about the limitations of underground purity. But maybe that means we should be supporting each other instead of attacking each other. Maybe that means commercial conscious rappers should be promoting underground artists, and underground artists should be helping commercial artists maintain their revolutionary edge." The maturity and wisdom of Tupac's conclusion impressed everyone listening, but it also raised questions about whether such cooperation was possible, given the fundamental tensions between different approaches to conscious rap. RZA's final statement would prove that the confrontation had been genuinely educational for everyone involved, even as it had exposed unbridgeable differences in philosophy and strategy. "This conversation needed to happen," he said, "because these questions about authenticity and commercialization are central to whether hip-hop can actually create social change or whether it's just another form of entertainment that makes people feel good about themselves without changing anything." The Hammerstein Ballroom, confrontation between Tupac and Wu-Tang Clan, became legendary not for its resolution, but for the questions it raised about the relationship between artistic integrity and social impact. Video footage of their philosophical debate spread rapidly through hip-hop communities and influenced how conscious rappers approached the balance between commercial success and revolutionary authenticity. For Tupac, the confrontation reinforced his commitment to using his commercial platform to promote underground artists and maintain the radical edge of his message, even as he continued to work within the corporate system. For Wu-Tang Clan, the experience deepened their appreciation for the strategic value of commercial success, while strengthening their commitment to maintaining an uncompromising artistic vision that could serve as hip-hop's conscience. The debate also established a template for how the hip-hop community could address internal disagreements about authenticity and commercialization without destroying the relationships and solidarity that made the culture strong. 28 years later, the authenticity debate between Tupac and Wu-Tang Clan remains one of the most sophisticated discussions of art, commerce, and social responsibility in hip-hop history, proving that sometimes the most savage confrontations are the ones that end with greater understanding of the complex challenges facing any movement that seeks to change the world through culture.